morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to this week's episode of the Non-Identity Podcast. Now, this week we're joined by a freedom coach. It's Natalie. Hi, Natalie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you, Lee. I'm excited to be here.
Before we find out what a freedom coach is, can you just explain to everyone who you are and where you grew up?
Yeah, my name is Natalie Janine. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, United States, and I lived there most of my life with my family. My family is composed of many different people because I was in the foster care system for a while and then I got adopted. So I definitely consider my biological family still family and my adopted family family. And then I recently, well, I don't know how we're going to identify recently, but 15 months ago, I moved to Dallas, Texas. So I've been here now. But that's me in a nutshell.
Are you enjoying Texas at the moment?
I am. It's a very new place for me. I'm not from here. I haven't, before moving here, I didn't spend time here. So it's been an adjustment because it is very different than home, but I'm liking it.
Going back to your childhood, when did you find out that you was adopted?
I always knew I was adopted because I got adopted older in life. So I knew that my biological family existed and I grew up with them for some time and then later got adopted. So I knew the whole time. I was 10 years old when I was placed into the foster care system. So I'm old enough to know what's going on. And as far as resentment, when I was 10 to about 13, there was a lot of resentment and really the desire to be back with my siblings, with my biological mother, but it never panned out. And so after 13, I really understood that I was not going back with her and my siblings. And the reason why it took a long time for me to understand that is because for the first 3 to 4 years, they kept telling me I was going back with my biological mother, and then I wasn't, and I was, and I wasn't. And we went through that cycle for a long time, which I think is not very helpful. So there was some resentment then. But as I gotten older and my biological mother just wasn't fit. So I don't have resentment today.
You know, I can kind of resonate. So my mum left us when I was 9. And we talk and stuff now, and we've got a really good relationship. And I sort of got the attitude I could never forgive her for what she actually did, but I can understand the reasons why. And we're all older now, and I've got my own family and stuff, so life's too short to hold that resentment. But I definitely understand what you're saying. The teenagers were tough, especially
Yes.
being a male as well, because we all want our mum.
It's so hard we just grow up with these ideas that we will have our parents forever and they're going to do what's best for us. And then everyone's not fit to be a parent, yet anyone and everyone can have children just about if you are healthy. And so that can be very tough to navigate. And we're not taught that actually family is not mother and father. Like family is very different, but I didn't know that foster care existed until I went into foster care. Well, right before I was going into foster care, I was telling my friends, and one friend was like, well, I'm a foster child. I just live with my aunt, but she's not my real aunt. And my other friend was like, I'm a foster parent. I mean, a foster child. Those are not my grandparents. And I was like, I would have never known if I didn't share my story that I'm leaving my biological mother and going with these strangers. But they did help me navigate because they remember leaving their family too. And one person was going back and forth with her biological mom and her foster parent. So they were able to help me a lot understand what was going on. But I wish that was more common to know that family is very unique and it varies.
You said in the intro you're a freedom coach. Before we get into exactly what that is, what led you to become a freedom coach?
Oh, my own life. I was in bondage. I grew up with, and I think my story of the way I grew up is not unique in the sense that children don't have a lot of say in the way that they want to live their lives or decisions. And so with that, I was a people pleaser because I didn't know how to speak up for myself or really articulate what it is I wanted. And so I was a passive aggressive young person, rightfully so. I mean, you didn't teach me how to stand up for myself. But in that, when I was an older teenager around 16 years old, my biological mother started harassing me. And I mean, truly harassing me to help be her caregiver. And I was like, I can't. And long story short, I got a criminal record and she threw me under the bus. And when I say I was in bondage, I truly was in bondage when I went to jail because I had to spend time in jail and I was locked up, couldn't make decisions. And I remember being so hurt and so disappointed And in that moment, I learned that I had to choose me. I had to start speaking up for myself, and I had to stick with my boundaries. If I didn't want to do something, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing anything out of obligation. I'm just not. And from that moment on, I just knew that I had to change my life and show up for myself, because at any point I could lose it. And I saw myself lose it once, and I wasn't willing to do that again. So I went on my own journey of healing, finding myself, truly understanding what it is I like. And I didn't know that I couldn't articulate what I liked until my adopted mom, who I'll refer to mom moving forward, her friend came over and we were having like a double date with daughters and moms. And they asked me, what do I like doing? And I named the same three things over and over and over. And I was like, girl, you don't even know yourself. So I started dating myself, and I started falling in love with myself in my life. And I saw how I was shining. And I was like, I want to help other people find themselves. And so I kind of started into coaching that route, and then it's changed a little bit.
So obviously you're saying like young people and children don't have control to make decisions and stuff. What do you think is a good age that a young person should have that right to start pathing out their journey, taking control?
I think children should start making decisions as soon as they start talking. Like the idea that I don't know what I was saying at 2 years old, but at 4 years old, you can say what you want for dinner, right? You can say what you have a taste for. Why not ask your child what they want for dinner and let them have that? I never knew that kids can say what they want for dinner until I got adopted. And my adopted mom was like, what do you want for dinner? I was like, whatever you cook. And she's like, you don't have a taste for anything? And I was like, whatever you cook. I never had that decision growing up. And so I think it's important to give them little things that they can decide. You should be teaching your children how to make decisions. So, for example, with my sister has children. So when I keep her children, I allow them to make decisions. And so I'll say, we can have this or this for dinner. What are you all thinking? That's simple. Okay, you need to clean the kitchen. Well, I don't like cleaning the kitchen right now. Okay, as an adult, when do you think you will clean the kitchen? Well, can I watch this show and then clean the kitchen? Absolutely. That's all teaching decisions and how to communicate and negotiate. And I didn't have that growing up.
That's the hard thing. I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the England, the UK, the education system, because I work in the education system, and we do take a lot of choices away from young people because we tell them what they need to wear with a uniform. We tell them how they've got to line up. We tell them how they've got to walk around the building. We tell them what room they've got to go to. We tell them how to sit. We tell them how to learn. And I feel like it does take a lot of identity. And it's really strange me saying this because I've worked in education for 20 years. But I know that I haven't got the power as one voice to be able to sit there and change it, but I can see what's really wrong with it. Is that the same sort of how it is in the States?
So depending on where you go to school will determine what you wear. So if you go to a private school, you tend to have uniforms and like what you're talking about. But if you go to public schools, they have a dress code, but it's a lot more freedom in that than it is at a private school. Because I went to a private school and I had uniform. And I will definitely say there's some creative freedom in how you do assignments, but it's a lot of, I give you this information, I'm going to test you on this information, you tell me this information. And what I don't like about education in general is this way of judging someone's work. Like, if you want it to be a certain way, or you want them to write a certain way and talk a certain way and answer your questions in a certain way, it takes away their creative control. And so I think there's just so many different things in life that is teaching us how to people please and how to show up for other people so that we can get the good grade or we can get the good job or whatever it is. And it takes away us unapologetically showing up.
Yeah, no, I totally resonate with that. So I deal with the students who are removed from the classroom and stuff, and they come over to me and we do a lot of work on how to handle situations better. And a lot of things I'm finding that students are brought over to me because they were asked for their opinion, and because the teacher didn't like that opinion or felt that opinion was wrong, they get in trouble. And I just sit there as a teacher, don't ask for that opinion then. And that's one of the things I say to the students as soon as they come into my room: you're safe to share your opinion here because I'm asking for it. I want you to be honest. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear, because as long as you do it respectfully, you're not going to get in trouble for it. So I get a lot of students say to me, "I hate this place. This teacher's horrible," and that's absolutely fine. I've asked you to do that, so you've got the freedom to say that. But it really frustrates me that a teacher will ask a student what you think, they give their opinion, and then they get in trouble for it. Totally resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah, and see, I was a rebel child when I was in school. If I didn't necessarily agree with something or I felt like the lesson was boring, I tend to say something. You just knew that I wasn't feeling it. I'll never forget when I was in high school. I was taking this religion class as a first year student, and it was Old Testament. Boring. And so I was just so bored, and I kept talking, and my teacher was like pulling me to the side. He's like, if you just get through this week or you get through this lesson, you'll be so much better. But I do think it's also important to teach people in various ways. Like the idea that you'll lecture to me for hours, I am tapping out. And I think all humans are tapping out because we don't have the attention span. Before we think about all the electronics and social media, we didn't never have the attention span to be hearing somebody lecture to us for 3 hours straight. Like I need some flexibility in that. And I think a lot of people need flexibility in the way we're being taught.
Going back to your time incarcerated, if you don't mind, how did that affect you mentally?
Oh gosh. Before I was incarcerated, going through a legal situation affected me mentally. So in my biological family, I broke a lot of generational curses. I wasn't a teenage parent. I was the first one to go to college. So I had this, like I was successful and I was like, oh my God, I broke all these generational curses. I made it. And then to be at this very prestigious college in the US, I get a warrant for my arrest, which means the people are looking for me. Like the system's looking for me.
You want to tell us why there was a warrant for your arrest?
I can definitely share about it. So before I got the warrant for my arrest, it was an investigation about this crime that my biological mother was committing. And through the investigation, I was very like, some people will say that I was stupid because I gave them everything they asked for, but you're told, and so if anyone's listening to this and you get in any legal trouble, you're supposed to talk to your lawyer before you talk to anybody. You need a lawyer first. I had no lawyer, but I also didn't have anything. I didn't have anything to hide. I was 18 years old, living my best life in college. So I'm like, yeah, you want my bank statements? Here you go. You want me to sign something? Here you go. So I gave them everything because I didn't think I was in trouble. Well, my biological mother's story was very different than my story. And she just threw me under the bus the whole time. Like she just blamed everything on me, that I was really aware of this situation, even though I never signed any documents. They knew that that was not my signature. But I mean, the system, it seemed like they were trying to charge somebody. Somebody had to go down. And I went down for it. And so I knew that they were going to send a warrant for me because they told me they were going to. And I said, whatever you do, please don't come pick me up from college. I've been so cooperative the whole time. You have never had to ask me for something multiple times. So if you're going to do that, I just ask that it doesn't come to my college. Don't come get me. I will turn myself in. And so it was March or no, I think it was about March. And I remember it was a Saturday. It was dark and it was raining. I was coming back from a restaurant with a classmate. And something, I kept having this internal war with myself, like, go check your mail, don't check your mail, go check your mail, don't go check your mail. And I was like, what is this about? So I checked my mail. And I think it said Oregon Department of Multnomah County or something, or Oregon Department of Criminal Justice, something. And I said, you gotta be kidding me, to myself. And I got to my room, I opened the mail, and it was a warrant for my arrest. I cried. I just remember being in my room, and I'm a Christian. And so I got that letter, I dropped to my knees and I just prayed and I said, oh God, if this is my story, because like, again, I said, I had family who had generational curses and I had a lot of family members in and out of jail. Like I saw my biological mom be stripped away from me as a little kid. And I'm grabbing the police and saying, let go of my mom. So I just was unsure in this situation if I would be a person who continues to go to jail or would I really break generational curses and be successful? And so I was on my hands and knees crying through tears. I said, God, if I'm going to be a repeated criminal, you can take me out. I'm not living a life like this. If there's light at the end of the tunnel and I will be successful, I will go through this. And as you can see, there's light at the end of the tunnel and I decided to go through it. But I was depressed. I was suicidal. And while I was going through this criminal situation, I didn't tell anybody. So it's just be me and my biological mother that talked a lot about it, which I think is just so messed up. But that's how much bondage I was in. And then I finally told, at the time I wasn't adopted, but I finally told my adopted mom now. And she was like, the way that she cared for me, she's like, "You're gonna be okay. We got this." And I was like, "We got this? Do you know what I got a warrant for my arrest? I just came from, because I came home and the first thing I did the next day is I went to turn myself in. And my biological mother was like, "Oh, you'll be there 4 hours max." I was there all day and night. So my adopted mom had no idea where I was. And she had called my phone multiple times. And so then finally came home. She's like, "Where were you at?" And I was like, "Oh, we'll talk about it in the morning." Because I didn't feel like talking about it. I didn't know how. And in the morning, she's like, "Are you going to tell me where you were?" And I was like, "It's bad news. You want to sit down for this?" And she just had me the whole way.
Incarcerated itself, was there anything that you learned? Because having that time to sort of reflect on yourself and stuff, what was there anything that learned, or was you still rebelling?
Like, oh, I'm glad y'all see my facial expressions. I didn't necessarily learn anything about myself besides I was never coming back. Um, I I don't know how I made it through because you're treated less than a dog. People love dogs. And when you're in jail, they love a dog more than they love you. You are treated like you are the worst person on the planet. Like they would feed us meals. I didn't know what it was. I didn't eat. I lost 20 pounds. And I was only my first time there, I was only there for 25 days. Now my pants were falling off my waist when I got out of jail because I was not eating stuff I couldn't identify. Um, you're tormented. Tormented. I worked for $1 a day picking up trash. Like it's horrific. So did I learn anything? Never to go back. And I've never been back.
Does your experience from that still sort of trigger you sometimes, even now? Or have you managed to put that to the back of your mind?
When I hear people talk about inmates or talk about the prison system they've never been, and they say something that's just not my experience or people that I know their experiences, it I feel a little way about it. Like I think we should give a lot more grace to inmates, but that's how we are to people who have been locked up. So I get triggered in the sense like you don't know what you're talking about. And I wonder if you knew the truth about me, would you respect me? Would you think that I'm less than? Um, so sometimes that, but I know that I will, like, I have a family member locked up right now, and I can't really imagine going to go see them just because I know you're not going to treat me like a dog. I'm sorry. You're not going to treat me worse than you treat a dog. And so little things like that, I just know too much to try, like, so somewhat a little bit.
Said you're a freedom coach. What what type of people do you help and how do they find you?
Yeah. So the reason why, like I said, I got into coaching was because of the lack of freedom. But I also realized that a lot of people don't negotiate their salaries and they're working in toxic environments and they don't feel like they're really part of the team or confident in their work because of the way they're treated. So I help corporate women who feel stuck in the corporate grind land six-figure positions and have a better work-life balance. And so you can find me on TikTok. That's where I'm at the most, Natalie Janine Gates. But literally, if you Google Natalie Janine Gates, you will find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And please reach out. I would love to communicate with you, whether you're a woman or a man. I love talking to people and helping people.
And do you find in the corporate world that women are treated unfairly? Because I know in the UK there's a lot of disputes over salaries for men and women. Is that the same where you are?
Oh yeah, men are typically paid more than women. But I also have to say, oftentimes men are asking, you all negotiate. Women don't. Like I met a woman today who is 55 years old and never negotiated and didn't even know it was a thing. We need to talk about it. Like we need to tell people to negotiate. 76% of companies in the world, not just the US, expect you to negotiate.
What's some good tips for negotiating when it comes to negotiating salary? Do you go in hitting hard with a figure in mind and just sticking to that? Do you go in nice? What's some tips you could give to people?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So oftentimes people think that they negotiate when they receive the offer. You've started negotiating as soon as you turned your application in. That very first interview, when they're talking about how great you are and what they want on the person to be like and what they're looking for, that is all used for negotiating because they're telling you who they want. And if you fit that and you bring that to the table, You negotiate based on that, not based on, I feel I deserve. Nobody cares about your feelings when you're negotiating, which is so sad, but so true.
Would you advise people, if they're not happy with what's being offered to them, to actually walk away? Or is that a very risky thing to do?
I've walked away. I had a client walk away. I've been talking a lot about who are we being loyal to. I think there's importance that you be loyal and you choose you and make sure it's the best thing for you. And so if the negotiation is not going well and you're not meeting in the middle for a happy, in a win-win situation for both of you, walk away. Like, there's way too many jobs for you to be stuck. Walk away. But I will say, you may walk. I walked away from one negotiation. I was like, okay, well, I hope you have a great day. Guess what? They came back and offered me much more than I expected. So it can go both ways.
In my previous job, where I'm working now, I've been there for 2 years. In my previous job, I've been there for 8.5 years. And as we was talking off camera about my wife's situation, I used to be the behaviour lead for a small alternative learning provision for special needs children. And they let me cut my days down to 4 days a week for a year, because I said I called it my home admin day. So stuff she hasn't been able to do throughout the week, I do 1 day a week just to keep the house in order. And after about a year, they said to me, oh, can you come back to 5 days a week? And I said, well, no, but we're still going through a lot of stuff and situations. And they went, oh, because the school doesn't work well when you're not in. And I was like, well, what do you mean? There's 35 of us. There's only 40 students. Like, what's the issue? It's 6 hours. And they were like, no, if you can't come back full time, we'll have to demote you down from your behaviour lead role to tutor. And I've been there 8.5 years. And I was just like, so I looked for another job, in a way, just to threaten them, because I thought, if you're moaning that I'm not going to be there for 1 day a week, imagine not having me here at all. So I typed in my old school that I went to as a student, and there was a job position. So I applied for the job, and then there was a job interview. So I went through that, and then I got offered a position, and I took all this thinking that my old company was going to say, don't go, actually, we'll keep everything how it is. And they didn't, and we're 2 years on now. I do get phone calls sometimes saying, are you coming back, from people I used to work with. But it was like, I'd done this just to prove a point of walking away, because I'm not having you treat me like that. Like, I've given you 8.5 years of my life, and the role I was in, I'd be answering emails at 10:30 at night and stuff like that. And this goes back to your work-life balance, because that was all expected. Like, this new job I'm in now, 4 o'clock comes and we finish.
Nice.
Which is really nice and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's why I asked the question about walking away, because I did that sort of as a sulky move, thinking I was going to get my way, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. So then part of me sometimes think, was that the right thing to do?
I mean, if you're asking my opinion, absolutely. Because look at your smile, and look at you still having time at home to do what you need to do. And so what bothered me about this story is that you gave them 8 years. And I tell people all the time, you are replaceable. A company will replace you in a moment. And not saying like, just take care of yourself, but you need to make sure that your career is in your hands and that you're doing what you want to do. So I'm thankful that you walked away. You still have time to do what you need to do and have work-life balance. And I'm sure they miss you, and good luck.
So going back to the work-life balance, what advice you give to people? Because I know in the UK, if we are working for companies, not working for ourselves, it is very grinding, we're very committed. There are lots expected of you for what you get paid. You don't get paid nearly enough for the hours you have to put in. So how do you advise people about a work-life balance?
Yeah, I think it's important for you to know what you like to do. Whether you work a lot or you don't, humans in general are very busy people, and we like to do. And so I think it's important for you to find these activities that allow you to relax, whether that's sitting out on your patio or being at the pool and like just sitting in life and being there, walking in nature. I think it's important to do those activities daily. So I tell people, if you're going to work hard, and you're going to go to a job, or you're going to start a side hustle and build that, or you're going to be a full-time entrepreneur, whatever you're doing, make sure that you're also spending time feeding your soul, because that's so important, and to ensure that we don't burn out. Like, burnout is a high in people. And so it's important that you do for yourself just like you do for everybody else. You should be a priority in your life.
And how do you keep the work-life balance for yourself?
Great question. I mean, you're always figuring that out. And for me, I know that if my body starts to feel something, then I'll take time for myself. But I actually daily, so I I work for myself, so I do have some freedom in my schedule, but I don't start working to 10 a.m. So before that, I am spending time meditating. I'm working out. I am spending time outside because I love being in nature. And then I work and I get my work, what I got. And then in the evenings, I sit and relax some time too, but I also go out to dinner and hang out with friends. So I do make sure every day, even some days, like I'm gonna be honest, some days, like recently I worked a 12-hour day. So that's technically working for 10 a.m. Those days happen, but even then I still take a break to go for a walk or to do something for myself. I don't work and eat. That's a boundary I have so that I do still show up for me, but every day I show up for me. And another thing, if you don't show up for yourself, you can't really help someone else. Like you're depleted, so you can't really give. So you're more productive when you're well taken care of. And I had to learn that the hard way.
Well, Natalie, we're coming to the end, and it's been a fantastic interview. Can you just remind people where they can find you again?
Yes, please come join me on TikTok, Natalie Janine Gates. I'm super excited to get to know you and help you. Please, let's have a conversation and let's get to know one another. So I'm excited for that.
And we'll make sure we put the link in the description so people can get to you quicker.
Yes.
Just before we go, we've got one last question. This is a question I ask every guest. If you could be remembered for one word and one word only, what would it be and why?
If I could be remembered for one word and one word only, love. Love, because I enjoy spreading love. I enjoy being everyone's cheerleader. And I know the power of love and how it can heal souls. So I would say love.
Well, Natalie, you've been a fantastic guest, and we're more than delighted to have you back on in the future.
Thank you so much, Lee. It was such a pleasure being here. I appreciate the work you're doing.